Or as more and more medical professionals refocus not just on the diagnosis and treatment of illness, but on prevention and the production of health, they are coming to recognize that active, informed, and connected communities are invaluable allies. Not doctors and hospitals and nurses, but relatives, neighbors, and voluntary associations and churches and local groups affect the primary determinants of health. They can change. These local groups, these local relationships can change what affects our health, our personal behavior, the strength of our supportive networks and relationships, the condition of our physical environment, our economic status. This doesn't get changed through a hospital or a doctor. Healthier people are produced by active, healthy, engaged communities. Another quick example. Finally, in the United States, at least more and more people working in the criminal justice system are recognizing that imprisoning millions of our citizens contributes to an insane public policy. And besides, our conservative friends note, it is hugely expensive. So lots of people across the political spectrum have begun to think about other ways of doing it. Do we have to lock people up? And in a wonderful turn of ironic events, they have begun to turn to indigenous communities in the United States and Canada, across the world, people who have understood justice in a different way. People who have always understood crime as basically an offense to the community, a breaking of the relationship to the community. So that the response to crime is not revenge and punishment, but the response to crime is something they sometimes call restorative justice. How do we work at restoring right relationships in the community? You've broken the law. Let us, your peers and neighbors and community members, meet with you to decide what you must do to restore right relationships with your neighbors. We're not going to ignore that you've done wrong, but we're going to put it right and help you put it right. Prison is not the answer. Community hospitality is. And Bethel's program, the Welcome Home program, is a wonderful example of that approach. So here we have it in institution after institution: community health promotion, community policing, community-based restorative justice. Add to these, we could talk about community schools. Learning is not the product of schooling. Learning is what people do from the time they are born till the time they die in relationship with each other in neighborhoods and in villages and in communities. So things called schools are starting, at least, to break down the walls between their exclusive franchise on learning and the reality, which is that every place is a learning place. And the growth of the community environment movement, which recognizes that if we're going to have clean water, people in a community have to own that stream. That's theirs. And we can't clean it up from Washington, D.C. or Ottawa or any place far away. And we're seeing the beginning emergence of community-based food systems. Eat local. Reduce the energy. Eat slow. Right? And we're seeing a lot of attention to community-centered business creation through micro-lending, micro-enterprise development, investment in local enterprise development. And we're seeing more and more the community-centered financial institutions that we saw so much of in Nova Scotia under Father Cody, credit unions, more. What does all of this signify? I think there's a pattern here, isn't there? It involves, in case after case, the recognition of the severe limits of gigantic institutions to produce the outcomes they say they desire. Police can't produce safety. Criminal justice systems can't produce justice. Medical systems can't produce health. School systems can't produce learning, and on and on and on. And so these institutions, at least the most creative leaders in them, are saying, you know what, we do have these limits. We are committed to these goals, and what we really need is the most powerful partner we can find. And that is an active, mobilized, connected set of communities, filled with citizens who are ready and willing to use what they have to obtain what they have not. So one way we're starting to think about this is that local communities are increasingly emerging as powerful producers of desired outcomes. Or, if you want to be a little bit more friendly to the big institutions, they are co-producers of the outcomes that the institutions are after. So mobilized communities are co-producers with police of safety. They are co-producers with the criminal justice system of justice. They are co-producers with the medical system of health. They are co-producers with the school systems of learning. So this idea of the mobilized local community as a co-producer of powerful outcomes is, I think, a way to think about our challenges and our opportunities ahead. So we are at the moment of this invention of community co-production, and we're seeing it all over the world. We're seeing in a place like South Africa that people can't look entirely even to the hopeful new post-apartheid government for the answers to everything, and that more and more the recognition of powerful community activity co-producing the outcomes that they all wish for is a necessary step forward, both in the global north and the global south, in urban areas and in rural areas. We're seeing the marriage of powerful bottom-up with still significant major institutional, more or less top-down activity. We're increasingly convinced, finally, that our acquaintance Malcolm Gladwell, who writes for the New Yorker magazine, might have been right when he suggested a theory of change that he called the tipping point. And that was a pretty simple idea that got a lot of us thinking in different kinds of ways. And the simple idea, oversimplified, simply says it's possible that there's a whole lot of things going on at any given time in a field that are unconnected with each other, and they're pretty small, and they're not very much visible to a wider public, but that they might grow into something that all of a sudden a pattern emerges. And all of a sudden a bunch of little things come together in a way that reveals a big thing. And the big thing becomes evident to lots of different people.